The biggest change that I see in India in, I'd say the last, 10, 15 years is because of the strength of the venture capital ecosystem here, you are seeing more and more investments into companies that are trying to build not just India-centric businesses, but global businesses, especially as you're dealing with the AI-based systems that people are now trying to implement, being able to surface the right data to the AI, like connect the right relevant information to the AI systems becomes incredibly important because accurate context is the lifeblood for successful AI.
Hello and welcome to another special episode of The Boss's Code. Most of you may have heard of Google when it comes to online searches, but there's one company that's running a lot of searches very quietly behind the scenes. And the company that's powering some of the biggest apps in terms of searches, for instance, if you take an Uber ride, connecting you to a rider, or if you want to take an e-commerce, bringing the products up on the category, a lot of things involves search. And Elastic is a company that is making some of these search products for enterprises where users can use even without knowing it. So today I'm joined with Ashutosh Kulkarni, CEO of Elastic. Ash, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So Ash, I'm sure that a lot of people know about Google and search and everything, but do you want to give a quick idea on what Elastic is all about, a brief history, and also what you're currently working on?
Yeah, so Elastic started on the back of an open source project called Elasticsearch, and Elasticsearch is a search platform. It's a search index. And the reason why our founders basically started that project and that company was with a simple view of being able to help users search across and do analysis on unstructured, messy data. And that's really what search is great at. It's great at dealing with the messiness of unstructured information. And you talked about Google. If you think about what Google is best known for, it's known for finding what is relevant for your question across all of this massive amount of messy information that might be in all kinds of documents on websites around the world. And Google specializes on public facing data that's on the internet. That same kind of messy, unstructured information also sits within organizations. It's the documents that you might have, it's the machine generated logs that you might be creating, so on and so forth. And Elastic was created to help people search and find the relevant information from within that internal organizational data. And we've grown with that model over the years. And today we are a company with just under 4,000 employees. We operate worldwide. About 54% of the global 500, the Fortune 500, are our customers. Major government agencies around the world are our customers. And it's all been on that notion of helping our customers get value out of their messy, unstructured information.
That's interesting. So, how exactly do let's say I just given that I give the example of Uber or an e-commerce site. How do you could you give a sort of a case study? How you build these kind of products into the company. Do you give some kind sort of a base infrastructure that they build on top of it, or you go and custom build something for these companies?
No, so we have a platform. We have a technology platform, and because it's an open source based technology, we have a very open mindset. Our APIs are completely open and easy to use. We typically work with developers, so we are very developer friendly. We work very closely with our community, and let's take e-commerce as an example. So we have customers like Dick's Sporting Goods, which is a major reseller of sports equipment and goods in the US. When they build their e-commerce website, effectively, when users go to that website, they want to be able to search for information on it, right? They want to be able to search for a tennis racket or search for a t-shirt for working out, etc. And all of that requires a search engine that is able to look through all of your inventory and surface exactly what's relevant for that search and make it available to their users. So the way this works in the background is users, our customers like Dick's Sporting Goods, will take their entire inventory data. They will take all of their product part descriptions, so on and so forth, and they will ingest it. They will, move it into our platform. We have APIs for all of that. We have connectors built for all of that. We will automatically ingest that data and index it, make it searchable effectively. And then we provide the APIs that you can build user experiences on top of that allow for that website experience. And in the case of Uber or any kind of company that uses geospatial mapping, which is, you described it, trying to match rider with driver, etc. We support geospatial data types, we support graphs, we support images, we support videos. So you can work with any and all kinds of data in Elastic, especially with the advent of AI now, where we can take images and videos and non-textual data and turn it into what are called vector embeddings, which allow you to now search across non-textual data in just as effective a way as was possible in the past with text data.
Right. Yeah, I think you touched upon the question that I had in my next is in terms of the vector search. So that is one of the defining aspects of the product that you're building in terms of how you provide that search. Could you explain that, how it is different from a traditional search, and why is it important in this kind of setup?
Yeah. So, the traditional way that you searched across information was using what is often referred to as textual search or lexical search. And think of that as you're looking for keyword patterns, right? You're doing pattern recognition in text. Now, that works when you're dealing with text information, but it doesn't do a few things. One is it's hard to do natural language semantic searching. So, good and excellent are synonyms. So if I search for good with just a textual match, then if the document does not have the word good in it, it's not going to recover it. But if I do semantic search, in other words, I'm looking for information based on the meaning, the intent of my query, then if the document has the word excellent in it, although I search for good, it's going to surface that information. So that kind of semantic searching requires a different technique. Also, if you are dealing with non-text data, let's say I'm looking at, I have a library of images and I say, show me all images that have a cat in it. How do I do that, right? How do I get that kind of pattern matching? So the technique for that is what's called vector search. And the underlying capability that you need is a vector database. And we built a vector database over 5 years ago. We saw this coming well before the advent of ChatGPT. We saw the value of being able to represent data as these vectors, where you run your data through what's called an embedding model. And these embedding models effectively turn your data into a vector, which you represent in some sort of binary form. And then you have a different technique that allows you to search in that vector space for similar vectors. And those similar vectors give you the ability to do things like find every image that has a cat in it, or find the document that has the word good or similar words based on the semantic of what good means. So this technique of vector search is incredibly valuable in the space of AI.
So Ash, Elastic is one of the products that you're building or you're already running successfully, and you're also kind of building in another area where Kibana and Logstash is also some of your other products, and logging log management is one of your key products, or rather that's your area of strength. But how do you see the larger market? Because you're seeing companies like, say, Datadog and Dynatrace also doing some of these things in the observability space. Could you explain the market that you're facing, where these companies are also providing the kind of services that you are providing? How do you differentiate in this market, and what's the moat that you're building at Elastic?
Yeah, so John, the first thing is that we don't have multiple products. We actually have one single platform. So we don't sell different products. We just sell one single platform. And that platform has Elasticsearch as the data store. It has Kibana as the visualization layer. It has Logstash, Beats, and Agent, and so on as the mechanisms that allow us to bring data in. So fundamentally, when our customers buy anything from Elastic, they're buying one product SKU effectively. It has all of the capabilities in it. And then the way we monetize our technology is based on consumption. So depending upon how much of our product they're using, the compute, the storage, the disk, etc., the memory, etc., that is how we monetize. So if they're using us a lot, they pay us accordingly. If they're using very little, they pay us accordingly. So that's the first thing, which makes our platform and our pricing model, our entire business model, very, very user friendly, very, very customer friendly, because there is no shelfware. They only pay for what they use, which is a big differentiator against many of the other competitors in this space. The incumbents tend to, effectively every little functionality that they add, they'll create a separate product SKU, which means that you're buying, 1,000 different things and you end up using only 10 of them. And there's a lot of shelfware in the market. We haven't followed that path. And to your question about like the spaces, the markets that we play in, what is common across all of them is the fact that these are all problems that involve large amounts of unstructured, messy data. So when you're dealing with search, it tends to be a lot of unstructured, documents, etc., product descriptions, so on and so forth for e-commerce. But at the same time, when you're dealing with observability, it's machine-generated logs, it's network logs, it's web logs, it's identity and access management logs, it's application logs. These tend to be very complex data sets. Every log line is different from the one before it and the one after it, which makes it very, difficult for you to do any kind of analytics on it. And that's what a search engine is excellent at. And the same with cybersecurity. The area that we play in cybersecurity is primarily security analytics, or SIM and XDR, as they're often referred to. And even there, security is fundamentally a data problem. You're trying to sift through all of your log information, your endpoint telemetry, your web telemetry, your network telemetry, to find anomalies and patterns that indicate a potential cyber attack. And that's how we have entered into these spaces. And our core value add, our strength of having the best backend platform for doing AI and machine learning based analytics on all of this data to find these patterns for observability and security helps differentiate us. And that's why we are doing very well. We might not have started as an observability vendor. We might not have started as a security vendor. But today, according to Gartner and Forrester, we are a leader in observability and we are a leader in cybersecurity.
Right. So you mentioned about using generative AI in terms of creating these kind of dashboards and also helping understand the unstructured data itself. Could you draw a paradigm and say, this is how Elastic has changed from how things were happening pre-generative AI to what you're doing right now, and what are some of the areas that you're building from there onwards?
Yeah, perfect. So, we have customers in the e-commerce space who in the past used to use the Elastic platform for text search. So if you went to the site of Dick's Sporting Goods, you would typically see Elastic being used for just text search to be able to find a new cricket bat or a new tennis racket or whatever. Today, we get used for on that same website for things like semantic search. So you're able to search for things based on similarities, based on the intent of what you're looking for. We are also being used for things like image search, reverse image search, where somebody might have an image of an outfit that they might be looking for, and they just feed that image to the search engine and say, find me whatever you have that looks like this. And we are able to understand what that image represents, what kind of outfit that might be, and then find the matching appropriate outfits that particular e-commerce vendor might have within their inventory. So it's really been a very interesting way to democratize how people use these AI systems and find the information that they're looking for. And that's how we have evolved. We've evolved to make basically data retrieval much more intelligent, much more sophisticated, and simpler to use based on the way humans typically search for things. And that's it's built based on our core IP around context engineering, around our vector database, and it's helping us differentiate in the market.
Right. So, I mean, you touched upon the more important aspect. I want to get into the core IP. So, kind of, I wanted to take like a couple of years or, even 3, 4 years before you were heading product at Elastic and you weren't a CEO yet. But what was happening is AWS was taking a fork out of your own Elastic and then building it for the users on AWS platform. So that created a little bit of a controversy and a problem for you, which led to a licensing regime. And now you're kind of, back into a partnership with AWS, at least I'm sure. So could you explain how this open source software environment is working? What led to this friction, and also how you're kind of, working together with AWS now?
First of all, open source is a wonderful thing, and it's good for others to be able to build new and innovative products on top of open source. So we are big believers in that. Like, we don't believe in hoarding what we build in open source only for ourselves. We live and operate in open source. All our source code is in an open public GitHub repo, and we've always had that open source ethos. The friction came from the fact that the service that AWS created on Elasticsearch, they called it AWS Elasticsearch Service. So they used the same name as our company name and our product name, which created massive confusion in the market. And we had a copyright on the name Elasticsearch. So our friction with them came from the fact that they were using a name that they were not legally allowed to use, and that's what caused all of the issues. And eventually what we did was we changed the license terms that made it very difficult for them to keep doing that. And once we did that, they forked the open source project and created something called OpenSearch. And we were fine with that because we know that our greatest strength is being able to compete on the strength of the innovation that we drive, the products that we create, and being far ahead of the competition, including AWS, on terms of the technology. And once we did that, now in the market, there is clarity. There isn't AWS Elasticsearch and Elasticsearch, but there
There's
is
OpenSearch, right?
Elasticsearch. Exactly. And then there's OpenSearch from AWS. And now with that clarity, customers are better informed. There isn't confusion. And the best thing that came out of it is AWS and we became closer because now we know how to compete. It's clean. We don't have to keep arguing about why are you using this name versus that. We compete on the strength of our individual products. And they know that we are significantly ahead in so many technological ways, that they partner very well with us because they want the workload to stay on the AWS platform. So, when they realize that for a particular customer's needs, OpenSearch just isn't going to be good enough, they would rather work with Elastic and make sure that Elasticsearch is running on the AWS infrastructure as opposed to on GCP's infrastructure or Microsoft Azure's infrastructure. And that has brought AWS and Elastic even closer together. And there's a tremendous amount of positivity in the partnership.
So you've been at Bangalore at Elastic Online Plus. I couldn't meet you in person there. What's your I'd say view of India within this space? Firstly, looking at the developer community, and second, from the angle of customers, for instance, medium-sized businesses, large-sized businesses. How are they approaching cloud ecosystems and moving into a digital native phase?
Yeah, so let me talk about the community first. India is the country that has one of the largest, segments of the Elasticsearch community in the world globally. So when we launch any new product capabilities, any service, new service, the most number of participants that we see hitting our service are all in India. So it's quite phenomenal. So India as a country, especially because of the advent of GCCs, is the place where we see a lot of our community members and our developers really thriving. And so this market matters a lot to us for that reason. We had a packed Elasticon conference. We had over 8,000 participants for a hackathon that we ran, and it was incredibly well attended. We had hundreds of people come to workshops at our offices in Bengaluru, and then the in-person Elasticon itself had close to 1,000 people in person, with over almost 3,000 people online watching the feed online. So very, very impressive stats in terms of the number of people attending the conference and participating. Now, in terms of the customer base, you talked about how are people adopting the cloud models and AI and digital natives. The biggest change that I see in India in, I'd say, the last, 10, 15 years is because of the strength of the venture capital ecosystem here. You are seeing more and more investments into companies that are trying to build not just India-centric businesses, but global businesses, right? So you're seeing a lot of not just e-commerce companies and so on, but major brands that are coming up now that aspire to build businesses for global usage. Freshworks is an example, Darwinbox, and so many others. You see now like AI-based companies like Emergent that are trying to create vibe coding platforms. And then obviously an e-commerce, like everything from Swiggy to Flipkart to PhonePe, etc. It's fascinating how much the ecosystem has grown and evolved. And every single one of them has a need for AI and a need for search. And so we are working with many digital native companies here. We partner very well with AWS, GCP, and Microsoft. And through those partnerships, through our presence in the community, we are seeing a lot of success in the digital native space. We are seeing a lot of success in enterprises, whether it's banks and telcos and so on, but also in the government sector, John, where we are seeing a lot of usage of our data-centric technologies for government agencies in India.
So broadly, what are some of the challenges that these organizations face when you're actually
Yeah,
implementing some of the Elastic solutions?
you know the larger the agency, what you tend to see is more legacy, obviously, because with time, like you end up building more of that, and also greater silos and fragmentation of data. And especially as you're dealing with um, the AI-based systems that people are now trying to implement, being able to surface the right data to the AI, like connect the right relevant information to the AI systems becomes incredibly important because accurate context is the lifeblood for successful AI. And that's really where Elastic comes in. Some of the technological innovations that we have driven are things like cross-cluster search. So you can have multiple instances of Elastic across different cloud environments, across your own different data centers, and we can make all of those different instances appear as one virtual unified environment. So through that kind of a model, data, which has a lot of gravity and is difficult and expensive to move, doesn't need to move around. You can leave the data in place, but you can create a holistic view across all of that data. So we move the results as opposed to the data. We push the query to the data as opposed to bring the data in one place for querying. And that kind of innovation has made us incredibly valuable in these government agencies that have this data fragmentation problem. We'll often refer to it as a data fabric or a data mesh. And that architecture is very, very popular in large enterprises and most certainly in government agencies.
for people who are building on open source ecosystem like the one that Elastic itself was built on, what do you think would be their biggest challenges coming ahead in the future? And also, what is one big opportunity that they can take away from the open source ecosystem?
Open source reflects choice, better choice. Open source reflects faster learning because you can learn more through the interactions with your community, and it's not just the strength of your engineers, but the strength of the community. And open source reflects reduction in cost because you are able to, increase innovation without proprietary lock-in, and that is good for the ecosystem, that is good for the industry. So open source has a lot of tremendous value in it. But if you're building a business based on open source, you have to be very thoughtful about what do you make available through the community edition or the free version of the product, and what do you monetize? How do you build a business successfully where you are thoughtful about making sure that you give enough value to the community for free, while at the same time capturing value for things that are highly differentiated that you can use to then create value for your shareholders, pay your employees their salaries, so on and so forth. And there are several companies that have done this really well. Red Hat was the first one. They had this model where they really monetized support, right? That was their primary monetization model. Elastic, and we're not the only ones, but there are others now as well. But Elastic, our model was always we monetize a higher edition of the product that has more features in it that we feel our customers would be willing to pay for. So that was our monetization model, and we've been very successful with that. So it's a new way of thinking. But as you look at AI, you're seeing more and more companies that are open source based that are trying to create these AI systems now. You have companies like Mistral in France that's open source based. You have the Llama models by Meta that are open source. So you're going to see more and more of open source really percolating into the AI world as well. And that as that happens, I think the same benefits of choice, faster technology innovation, and effectively reduction in prices, all of these benefits will accrue to the industry as a whole, and that's going to be good for all of us.
On that note, thanks, Ashutosh, for your time. It's been a pleasure connecting with you and getting to know more about
Likewise.
Elastic and what's happening.
Thank you very much. Take care.